Hi everyone, and Happy New Year in a very, very choppy start of a year. And everyone, I said choppy new year and it's a technical problem, but let's keep on going in spite of it. I have Fluffy with me. Chocolate is probably going to come back. And remember in the fall that I showed you a beautiful canna lily that bloomed in my front yard during the summer, and then I moved it inside to see if I could help it survive winter to bloom again in the spring and the summer of 2021. It was, for me, like a symbol of life and light in this awful time of COVID. Well, you guys, I want you to look at this resurrection bloom. Here's what it was like in breathtaking August, and then 6 months. Let's go back, Brad. We're starting off. Let's just do it right. This is what it looked like in August 6 months ago. And you guys, look at its resurrection blooms now in January of 2021. It just came out this New Year's holiday, and I wanted to share this new surprising winter bloom with you, along with prayers that this could be a positive sign for 2021 that is getting off so rough between COVID and politics, and we need all of the help that we can get. On Monday, January 4th, 2021, the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced, quote, "A new national lockdown for England is expected to last until mid-February due to the frustrating and alarming speed at which the new coronavirus variant is spreading," close quote. After the more infectious COVID mutation was found in Kent, spreading faster than the first COVID version, another new and even more infectious COVID was recently found in South Africa, and this new mutant strain is in 4 more other countries. Quote, "As the new COVID-19 strain attacks South Africa, vaccine experts are incredibly worried. There are pretty substantial changes in the structure of the spike protein in this strain, which is a very, very significant problem," close quote. If the genetic changes in this new strain in South Africa are too great, vaccines might not work well against it. But no one knows yet. Around the world to date, this awful COVID pandemic has so far infected 87.6 million people worldwide and killed nearly 2 million. In the United States, nearly 22 million people have been sick with COVID-19, and nearly 400,000 have died. Meanwhile, up in the skies, strange and unusual aerial objects seem to be being reported now more frequently than usual. And in just the past couple of weeks, there have been some interesting photographs. One on December 29th, near 8:30 p.m. local time on the western side of Oahu, Hawaii. Several witnesses saw a long blue-colored UFO shaped like the letter L flying in the sky. It was silent, and a witness said it was about the length of a telephone pole. And then it plunged down into the ocean near Oahu's Ulehawa Beach Park, shown here. Now this frame is from a cell phone video that a woman named Mariah recorded. After the strange blue object went into the water, another object appeared in the air that looked smaller than this blue one, but seemed to be following the same flight path. And then there is this beautiful red cloud at China Lake Naval Air Station in California on December 24th, Christmas Eve. There is an unidentified long dark object that I'm pointing out with the arrow. The photographer works at China Lake Naval Air Station in California. He works in aerospace technology and has a top secret clearance. He did not want to be identified by name, but wanted me to see this photograph of the UFO that he took from his backyard in Crest, California. China Lake is about 240 miles driving southwest of Nellis Air Force Base and Area 51 and S4 in Nevada. So you've got these two highly classified military areas about that far apart, and this is where a lot of these UFOs are often reported, and this one photographed. The man took this second frame, time stamped only 2 seconds after the first frame, but the dark UFO object was gone. He told me, quote, "If you look at the arc distance that object would have to travel in 2 seconds to be out of view of the camera, that is a lot faster than a bird or a jet or anything. So I don't know what this would be. Whatever this thing is has to be moving really fast." And now he made this blow up of the UFO that was in the first frame and told me, quote, "It almost looks metallic. There's just the faintest hint of a kind of sheen to it. And then there's that straight dark area around the middle. Is it a seam? It's definitely bizarre." And when I asked a senior colleague of mine at China Lake what he thought the object could be, the first thing he said was, quote, "That's definitely nothing of ours," close quote. While UFO, UAP reports around the world seem to be increasing somewhat, a week and a half ago on Sunday, December 27, 2020, President Trump finally signed the 5,593-page, $2.3 trillion COVID-19 relief and government funding bill. What most Americans did not know was that buried near the end of that massive bill, the COVID bill, was this advanced aerial threats insertion attached to the Annual Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021. We will put the URL to study the pages in the comments section tonight after the broadcast, and I urge all of you to go and study it yourself. I am also going to do an Earthfiles.com news report later that will include all of this information. But I want to detail some of this text now, beginning with that red underlined title, Advanced Aerial Threats. Quote, "The committee supports the efforts of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force at the Office of Naval Intelligence to standardize collection and reporting on unidentified aerial phenomenon and any links they have to adversarial foreign governments and the threat they pose to U.S. military assets and installations. However, the committee remains concerned that there is no unified, comprehensive process within the federal government for collecting and analyzing intelligence on unidentified aerial phenomena despite the potential threat. The committee understands that the relevant intelligence may be sensitive. Nevertheless, the committee finds that the information sharing and coordination across the intelligence community has been inconsistent, and this issue has lacked attention from senior leaders. Therefore, the committee directs the Director of National Intelligence. And now, just for a second, the current DNI is John Ratcliffe, who took office in the Trump administration 7 months ago on May 26, 2020. And then on November 23rd, President-elect Joe Biden nominated Avril Haines to assume the DNI office in January 2021, which all of this UFO, UAP, new legislation, he will have to be handling. And this committee directs the DNI in consultation with the Secretary of Defense and the heads of such other agencies as the Director and Secretary jointly consider relevant, to submit a report within 180 days of the date of enactment of the Act to the Congressional Intelligence and Armed Services Committees on Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, also known as anomalous aerial vehicles, including observed airborne objects that have not been identified. And because this is an unprecedented legislative request to the military and intelligence agencies of the United States, I want to read in full the next paragraphs of specific requests for UFO, UAP information from different agencies. Quote, paragraph 3, they want a detailed analysis of data of the FBI, which was derived from investigations of intrusions of unidentified aerial phenomena data over restricted United States airspace. Paragraph 4, they want a detailed description of an interagency process for ensuring timely data collection and centralized analysis of all unidentified aerial phenomena reporting for the federal government, regardless of which service or agency acquired the information. Paragraph 5, they want identification of an official accountable for the process described in paragraph 4. Paragraph 6, identification of potential aerospace or other threats posed by the unidentified aerial phenomena to national security, and an assessment of whether this unidentified aerial phenomena activity may be attributed to one or more foreign adversaries. And foreign adversaries, ladies and gentlemen, this is Linda speaking, can be human, non-human, or both. Paragraph 7, identification of any incidents or patterns that indicate a potential adversary may have achieved breakthrough aerospace capabilities that could put United States strategic or conventional forces at risk. And paragraph 8, recommendations regarding increased collection of data, enhanced research and development, and additional funding and other resources. The report shall be submitted in unclassified form, but may include a classified annex, close quote. So what will happen at the end of June 2021 when the 180-day countdown in this legislation is over and the Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense are supported and supposed to be reporting to the American people perhaps finally some truths about, quote, unidentified aerial phenomena, anomalous aerial vehicles, and airborne objects that have not been identified, close quote. Earlier this week, I took that question to John Brandenburg, Ph.D., a plasma physicist now working on gravitational physics at Kepler Aerospace in Midland, Texas. He began studying 1976 Viking 1 radioactive isotope data on Mars in the 1980s, and reported in his 2015 book, Death on Mars, that there are radioactive isotopes on Mars that were produced by at least one hydrogen bomb, maybe two, exploding in the air. John told me that more recently, a space intelligence analyst said there was now irrefutable proof that Mars was bombed. Well, the new Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force is supposed to report at the end of 180 days about foreign adversaries behind UFO UAP phenomenon. I wonder where that foreign adversary threat on Mars is today. Here now is plasma physicist John Brandenburg.
I was approached by people in the remote viewing community and by other people in the space intel community that I used to work with in Washington, D.C. And they told me in the last 2.5 years, while I was part of the independent Mars investigation team, which turned out was headquartered at SRI in Palo Alto, and I was told that it was actually just down the hall from the headquarters of the remote viewing. While we were doing our unclassified investigation, we went to a conference and presented our results in the Case for Mars 2 conference, where it was well received. I was told that while we were doing that in February 1984 through July or August, what happened was that the U.S. government had its own classified investigation that was massive and involved every intelligence asset that they could bring to bear on the problem. Prominent Mars scientists were involved, and I asked these people, what was your conclusion of the massive classified investigation carried out by the CIA and the Pentagon and down at the White House? It was two of them, and they got this very cagey look and looked at each other and smiled and said, well, we decided it was 50-50. Could be a civilization, it might not be. Which, that's a dodge. That's a very lame way of saying, yeah, we confirmed what you found. Quite recently, I was informed by one of these same contacts. These people were friends and colleagues that I'd worked with in Washington, D.C., and I had a conversation with one of them, and he said, John, you now have irrefutable proof that you were right. I had focused on the xenon-129 and krypton isotopes by hydrogen bomb explosions, but there are other isotopes that can be used as forensic signatures of hydrogen bomb detonations. One of them is plutonium-244. It's not created in nuclear reactors. It's only created in hydrogen bomb detonations or supernovas. Its half-life is like 80 million years. So our best guess is Mars was bombed and wiped out probably 200 million years ago. So that would only be about a little bit more than 2 half-lives of plutonium-244. So it would still be there in the soil. And once you see that, then you know this was a hydrogen bomb explosion on Mars. Plutonium-244 was only discovered in the residues from the first hydrogen bomb test on Earth. They'd never seen the isotope before they set off a hydrogen bomb. Plutonium-244 was created in that explosion. You can't make it in a nuclear reactor, or you can't make it in any quantities that you can study. But in the hydrogen bomb, you create a lot of it.
And so your hypothesis in Death on Mars is that there was a civilization on the red planet, let's say 200 million years ago, that something else in this cosmos that had either a vendetta or was fighting others in this solar system over something, exploded a hydrogen bomb above Cydonia.
Yep. Yes. Actually, what's interesting is they exploded it in midair to the northwest of Cydonia, and the prevailing winds are from the northwest. That means all the fallout, the shock wave would be increased in strength, and the fallout would all fall on Cydonia Mensa. So that the immediate destruction and the fallout, which would kill all humanoid life, would also fall on Cydonia. And the same pattern exists at a place called Galaxis Chaos, which I discussed in the book. We know that the bombs were set off there because there are radioactive scars on Mars in thorium and potassium that show that the bombs went off in midair above there because there's no craters. Mm-hmm. These were airbursts, just like Hiroshima and Nagasaki were airbursts, because if you're going to destroy civilian structures above ground, you want airbursts that maximizes the shock wave.
Now, have you talked about this specifically with anybody who has worked in the Department of Defense or the CIA, NSA, DIA geospatial world of intel?
Yes, I have.
And how does the discussion go?
The first inkling I had that the Xenon 129 was the signature of a nuclear explosion was told to me by somebody at Sandia Labs, who was apparently an expert on sampling air after nuclear explosions. I was just standing in line with him at the Xerox machine. It was back in 1984. He noticed I was carrying a book about Mars and asked me about it, and I said, Mars has really interesting isotopes, especially Xenon 129. It's got a big spike that's not present in the solar wind or anything else. He said, can I take a look at that? And he looked at it, and the smile went away from his face. He said, somebody nuked him. And then he looked embarrassed, and suddenly he said, I'm sorry, and put down the book that he wanted to Xerox and then left the line. He had said something that he knew was classified. That was in 1984, and then in Washington, D.C., when I finally started getting better data about Mars, showing the xenon isotopes and things like this, and I showed this to several nuclear weapons experts in the offices where I was working, in the scientific intelligence area that I was working in, and they said, oh, yeah, that's hydrogen bomb signature. Definitely, they said.
Why do you think that the powers that be on this planet chose to keep all of us dumb and blind about such a significant discovery?
Well, the government has known about this since the moment they landed on Mars and sampled the atmosphere in 1976. They landed with 2 probes, and both probes verified this, and they just said to themselves, we're in the middle of the Cold War, and we're afraid we're going to have a nuclear war here too, revealing that there was a absolutely planetary nuclear war on Mars. When you're in charge of a government, especially during a time of great conflict like the Cold War, maintaining public morale is paramount. You always put a top spin on everything.
What would happen if they just told the truth?
Oh, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in again.
What if everything would be better if the entire planetary family were all told the truth at the same time? Power brokers and humble farmers all knew the same truth. Why is that bad?
When I began writing all this stuff up, and I discussed this with the intelligence people from the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency and the various military intelligences, we had a agent rather clumsily following us around. He posed as an astronomy professor. Turns out he worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency. We'd found that out because Washington, D.C. is a small town. We were all standing at a conference together, myself and Vince DiPietro, the original investigator, and this other fellow named Larry. And this colonel in the Air Force walked up in full uniform and introduced himself to Vince and I. Then he turned to Larry and said, "Hi, Larry, how are things at the Defense Intelligence Agency?" And Larry was a real pro. He didn't even bat an eyelash. He just said, "They're fine, Colonel. Thank you for asking." So we knew he worked for the DIA. He was constantly asking us for the latest information. I found out that, yes, I'd confirmed that this was a nuclear weapons signature.
On Mars.
Yes, I called him up. I just said, I want to give you a briefing, and I want you to report it to your superiors. I did. He took such careful notes that it was apparent that he'd never heard of this before. And then nothing happened for like 6 months. And then another contact that I worked with in the intelligence community said, why don't you publish all of this? So the government wanted it to come out. Mm-hmm. They basically told me to publish. The truth is coming out.
And John, this leads to such an important question right now. We are going into 2021, and Elon Musk is talking about how he hopes that he can launch one of his star cruisers to Mars in 2024 with a goal of putting 1 million humans from Earth on Mars in probably an underground lava tube base between now and 2050. Do you know anything about why Elon Musk wants to get 1 million humans from Earth to Mars, knowing everything that you know about the nuclear past of something that attacked Mars? Does anybody in government or intelligence imply to you that they have knowledge of a specific civilization, whether it's in the Milky Way galaxy, Andromeda, or wherever, that would have a motive to wipe out 2 planets in this solar system, in this arm of the Milky Way?
Everything that happened on Mars, you can draw a parallel to it happening on Earth. It could be that the people who did this wanted to terrorize other people in the Milky Way and show how ruthless they were, because people on Earth do things like that.
Okay, and that leads to a headline that came out December 29th, 2020, in the New York Post. COVID-19 bill started a 180-day countdown for UFO disclosures, and that bill was signed on Sunday, December 27th. That means 180 days from now would be the end of June of 2021. When you hear this, what do you expect is going to happen in 6 months in terms of now legislation demanding that the Department of Defense tell something truthful about UFO, UAP phenomena?
Well, the people I have talked to, they always spoke of these things in these videotapes as possibly hostile actors. So we're being prepared for the fact that not everybody in the universe likes us, and not everybody in the universe is pleasant.
I thought that you would go immediately to the whole issue of whatever happened on Mars, in which there is evidence of a hydrogen bomb. And that means that somebody knows about the solar system, knows about Mars, knows about Earth, and that 200 million years ago, there was hostile action in this solar system. So right now, the question in the 21st century is, are those hostiles still out there, and are there friendlies and neutrals that are protecting Earth and humans? And is that why we're still here?
The whole Mars hypothesis, by its very nature, tells people that the universe is a rough neighborhood. You must be on your guard. If somebody was to show up with a large space fleet with super hydrogen bombs, we would have a nuclear war in space. But I don't know whether we could prevail or not. The death on Mars hypothesis requires you to understand that there are forces in this universe which are very hostile to young spacefaring species like ourselves.
What do you think Elon Musk knows about your hypothesis of death on Mars and the evidence of a dead civilization?
It's my understanding that Elon has already been kind of taken aside by government officials. When he talks about his proposed landing sites on Mars, they are far away from Cydonia Mensa and Galaxis Chaos and Elysium, which are 3 of the centers of archaeology. So I think he has been told not to talk about this. He's supposed to talk about getting to Mars. They're going to tell him where to land and what to say.
What is behind his saying recently that he plans to have relays of starships so that he can have 1 million humans from Earth on Mars by 2050?
Having a big settlement on Mars means you can turn Mars into a fortress so that any hostile entities have to attack Mars first. Otherwise, they'll face a battle in space from Earth forces and Mars forces. And so there are many reasons why fortifying both the Moon and Mars will maximize human chances of survival. Everything that I hypothesized happening on Mars has already been seen on Earth, including life, evolution, humanoid intelligence, building of great structures and pyramids and carved bases, and then dropping nuclear weapons on helpless populations. That's all occurred on Earth. The idea is to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
It's confusing, isn't it, to think that the ancient history of this solar system and Mars and this planet and throughout, that there have been advanced civilizations that warred, and that what Elon Musk or archaeologists that go with him or follow him will probably be focused on in Cydonia region would be excavating and confirming the work of John Brandenburg and others. And it's not what I or anyone I know thought would be the exciting future of going from Earth and finally entering into being an interstellar space culture. But in some ways, it almost seems inevitable when you think about some of the reflection in some of our ancient literature, as above, so below. The reflection of humans, of a state of consciousness in the planet, the yin and the yang symbol, where the white is in the black and the black is in the white, and that everything in this universe seems to be a struggle in conflict. Why does everything in this universe have to eat something else to survive? And chocolate came. I started out with Fluffy, and I'm here with Chocolate, and I'm hugging him as a life form that I can't imagine the juxtaposition of this wonderful, loving, gentle soul cat in a universe where everything that John Brandenburg has learned about Mars might exist from end to end. But it makes me want to say to all of you more than I have ever felt, ever, a digital hug that we have got to concentrate on healing and nourishing our souls. There is something about this rough revolutionary time, like what happened in the nation's capital. I don't think any of us ever thought that we would see guns in the statuary hall like we saw today. It is as if opposing forces are moving through consciousness and life on this planet, and that it's moving to a new landscape. Whatever is going to evolve and come finally to some new resting state, maybe in 2021 or 2026 or 2030, but this is a revolutionary decade. And we've never, as humans, truly needed each other more, while at the same time we're juxtaposed against each other through a pandemic. All of these mixed, opposite, schizophrenic forces are at work at this planet at the same time. And as we go forward, I'm thinking that you and I, all of us, we have something very unusual to look forward to. And that will be the June 30th and July 7th dates, which will be the Wednesday nights of the Earthfiles YouTube channel broadcast. Those are the dates at the end of the 180-day countdown that has now been set in motion on the 27th of December by Trump signing that big, massive bill that right in the very end pages has all of these goals and directions for the DNI and the Secretary of Defense to start giving out more information about UAP, UFO, when we all know that they already know so much. And John Brandenburg's interview tonight was partly my way to reach out to somebody who is doing active research and knows that a world that is still denied knowledge and information, that we're not alone in this universe, while all the rest of this, these facts and these truths, are these huge layers underneath the let's pretend surface. It's all beginning to crack apart. And this is the juxtaposition tonight in the context of people asking me, what do you think is going to happen with that 180-day countdown? They're not going to come forth rushing with all of the truth about animal mutilations, human abductions, and 1,000 other subjects. But maybe 2021 is finally going to be when the government of the United States starts leading in opening up facts and truths about UFOs that they want everybody to now call UAPs. They're one and the same. And they've been interacting with this planet and this solar system truly for millions of years. So when we get to that last week in June, my goal and my challenge will be how much information will I be able to bring as they start assembling this information to match the requests in this bill. It's going to be very interesting to see what does emerge in the next 6 months. And that in this awful age of COVID, in which the South African strain is worrisome and the Kent strain in England has got that country in lockdown and we don't know exactly what's going to happen here, homeschooling is what everybody is trying to do. And what has occurred is that Peggy must now concentrate on homeschooling her children. And so my longtime friend and research colleague from England, Ian Holling, is now going to be in the Earthfiles chat broadcasts, helping me with questions, helping interact with those of you who would like to get questions to me, and to people who have whistleblower information. Ian and I have worked in research on animal mutilations, human abductions, and so many topics for the last 10, 15 years. So he has deep knowledge, and between him and between you who have new information or want to reach me about other older information that you have never shared, Ian Holling will be interfacing between you and me. And I want to thank Ian, who is in England, and so he's adjusting his schedule around England and our time schedule to do this, and I'm so grateful. And I wonder, Ian, I'm counting on that you are there. Since we did that rehearsal, we've had a couple of technical things, so we never know what's going to happen. Ian.
I'm here, Linda.
Oh, I'm so glad. What is on everybody's mind tonight?
Hey, first of all, Linda, I'd like to say thank you to the Super Chats. We've had Super Chats from Melanie Meisner, Renee Tur, Mr. Catfish, Knife Guy, Mary Kelly, Vicky Martinez, Bal Horse, Miss Pacman, Cosmo Cookie, Susan Brooks, and Eric Ackley. And I'm sorry if I've missed anyone, but thank you very much, everyone.
To you, Ian, for doing the list, and for those of you who are reaching out to help. It all helps make all of this possible, and I thank you profoundly. Please, please feel those digital hugs, and the way I was hugging chocolate is the way I'd like to hug every one of you around this planet. So, Ian, what do you have at the top of the list of questions to start out with?
Well, John Brandenburg's fascinating interview obviously triggered a lot of speculation from the viewers this evening. One of the questions coming in is, could the explosion have been accidental or experimental? How do we know this was intentional?
Well, that is an excellent question, and there isn't one of us alive today on planet Earth anywhere who would know the answer to that, especially if this is an event that took place 200 million years ago. And I would like to give some context for that number. John has some information in which that has been what the scientists have been estimating. A lot of you have heard me talk about what I consider to be the single most important 7-hour discussion that I've ever had with anybody who worked in the government for 23 years on extraterrestrial biological entity conflicts, investigations, research. And this is the DIA analyst that I met with in December of 1999. At the very beginning of that 7-hour discussion, he said, our government has proof that 3 competing, in conflict, extraterrestrial civilizations have been terraforming Earth as a laboratory and manipulating DNA in already evolving life forms as experiments on this planet, because this planet is considered a wonderful laboratory. And the 3 extraterrestrial civilizations do not get along, were in conflict 270 million years ago. So John Brandenburg places the possible timeline of the hydrogen bomb or hydrogen bombs going off over Cydonia in the northern hemisphere of Mars at about 200 million years ago, and that plutonium-244, with a half-life of 80 million years, would be about 160 million. That's where 160 million to 200 million. So it's in that framework of 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations competing with each other, fighting each other over Earth, that would be related to a hydrogen bomb attack on some of the civilization on Mars. This is laid out as, on the one hand, the DIA analyst says, our government has firm proof. When I ask, what is that proof? He said, Linda, it is too dangerous for either you or for me to know. So I don't have the details. I can speculate. John Brandenburg, working on the radioactive isotope levels on Mars and finding that xenon-129 and plutonium-244 only is made through a nuclear explosion or some sort of huge astronomical explosion, like of a star. So that means that whatever it is that has happened on Mars, there is evidence. There's hard evidence in the radioactive isotopes. But we don't have anything publicly, and the people who have worked in these offices, like the DIA guy, they're either not given the specific information on certain data points because they consider that too dangerous in terms of what would our human competition on Earth do. So everybody at all levels, extraterrestrial, compete, fight each other, bomb each other, humans compete, fight, and bomb each other. As above, so below, reflections of life. But I don't feel depressed about it. I feel that sort of it's been being presented to us as an evolving species for the last 40-some thousand years since Neanderthalensis did a crossfade with Cro-Magnon, Homo sapiens sapien. There have been different models, and everybody has always speculated, why are Homo sapiens sapiens so violent, intolerant, impatient of each other? Why? Well, maybe it relates to the genetic manipulation by whichever other civilization has worked to make different life forms on this planet. I think, as I asked John Brandenburg in that interview, why can't the whole truth be told? If we knew the whole truth, we might look at ourselves with more sympathy and more empathy and more compassion. Because if we are an abused species, which I think we are, that the abuse began with Homo sapiens sapien to deny us the truth. And now in the 21st century, where we may be close finally to having information out about the fact that this is not a perfect universe, we're not a perfect civilization, and neither are a whole bunch out there. But there is, I am convinced, a divine field that has inserted souls in life. And maybe it is that struggle that we've talked about before, the struggle between the light and the dark, the struggle of souls to choose light over dark, that this whole universe exists like a huge experimental training ground. That's part of the landscape in which this whole discussion about what happened on Mars, what happened on the Earth, I think should be. And in that context, I hope as we go further into 2021, not knowing now what else is coming, and what happens if that South African COVID strain gets loose, like what happened with the Kent strain, and look at what has happened to England. That we need to keep learning as much as we can to be helping each other keep going in a very rough, very strange time, when the more we know the facts, not speculation and not political manipulation, but the facts, the more we can help each other with the facts, which is why I'm doing the Earthfiles YouTube channel, the stronger we'll be. And in that context, dear Ian, what about another question?
Okay, I've got another question. Do you think that the USO and other submersible phenomena will be the focus of the next phase of any disclosure? What has been beneath us?
I think it has to be, because you guys have heard me say many times that DIA guy said that the competing extraterrestrial presence, they go down below the basins of the oceans and the seas, they're in the mountains, they're in lava tubes. They look at planets not just as surface, they look at them as 3D geometry, spherical geometry. So if this planet in this century, if we're going to go to Mars with Elon Musk's technology and I assume with scientists who will be archaeologists to do reality checks on death on Mars, that one of the things that we will be doing on Mars is we will go underground to survive there because of all of the lack of atmosphere, strong solar radiation, strong particles coming in, those huge dust storms that envelop Mars. Living on Mars in any kind of a full-time way, you have to go underground. And as Professor Chaim Eshad said in his own work that I went through the last 3 or 4 weeks, there is an underground base in a lava tube on Mars. And he says astronauts from Earth have been working shoulder to shoulder with some other intelligence there. The same thing has been going on this planet, as far as I know, from whistleblowers. What we don't have as a human population is confirmation from the governments of everything that is actually happening. And some of the arguments have been, well, people can't handle the truth. They can't handle that our history is completely different, the genetic evolution is completely different, that there are wars in the universe, that Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek are real, but those were just Hollywood versions of what's really going on. And my reaction to we should not know is then that keeps us an abused species. It's only when we know everything that is going on having to do with other intelligences in our planet, in our moon, in our solar system. The our is because we humans don't know anything else but saying our Earth, our moon. Clearly, if there has been another civilization on Mars, or a series of them, going back 200 million, 270 million, there are other life forms that would look at this solar system and this Earth as theirs. But maybe one of the reasons for so much invisibility by the phenomenon, so much projection of holograms, is that it serves some intelligence in a better way for humans not to know that they are here or throughout the solar system. That's always made me nervous. I've thought about that ever since I started working on the animal mutilation phenomenon. And I've always been taught, and I feel that it's been reinforced living my life, shine light on everything, know the truth and the facts. Otherwise, you can be manipulated and deceived forever. And I would not wish that on anybody or any planet or any civilization. There is something about this decade. It feels to me like we're just being shaken like this on purpose, whether even by the divine field, because so many things were going wrong on this planet. And we're being shaken up, and we have to come out the other side, either better, with more knowledge, more strength, more belief in our own ability to evolve. Otherwise, how many wise people have said, we won't survive our own ignorance. We won't survive our own fear. And we won't survive manipulation. This is the time for all of us to learn more and be told, and I'm hoping our government, with finally putting out, it's only 2 pages of that 5,593 page bill. There's just 2 pages on that advanced aerial threat. And that word threat is there so many places. Clearly, however we're going to be presented with information about UFOs, UAPs, and so forth, it's going to be put into the category of threat, potential threat. if it is a real potential threat or a real immediate threat, that's when I think the whole world should know, and we're not going to fall down on the ground. If it is manipulation to couch going into information about unidentified aerial phenomena, if it's couched as a threat to get money for budgets, that's not fair. That's not fair to anybody. So I hope that we're going to start moving on to new ground in the United States, for sure, in which science and facts and telling the truth and revealing everything will be the beginning of a whole new chapter. The United States is supposed to be of, by, and for the people. We can't be of, by, and for the people if we don't know all the truth and the facts. Ian, are you knocking?
Sorry about that, Linda. I thought I was on mute.
Well, I thought maybe you were trying to get my attention, and that's fine. That would be a good knock, and I will answer. Yeah. What about one more?
Yeah, I was just going to say it makes a change when people say that you're actually on mute when you shouldn't be on mute. But anyway, yes, we have another question that's really a great follow-up and perhaps a great one to end with, Linda.
All right.
And that is, will our space age future be like Star Trek or like Star Wars?
That is the perfect synthesis of everything. I'm going to tell you what I honestly think this moment on January 6th, 2021, after guns were drawn in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., in the United States, and that some of our representatives couldn't get out of the hearing room because they would have to go through Statuary Hall, where people also had guns. If that can happen, I think it is a signal. The dark and the light, the yin and the yang, the white in the black in the white. It is a characterization of this universe. And it appears that the struggle of light against dark has been the nature of this universe, maybe from its beginning. But then, that means that Star Wars and Star Trek are both the viable operating concerns in this universe, Ian. But it also makes me realize that just in the last 2 weeks, there have been more and more headlines coming from scientists having to do with more evidence this is a holographic universe, more evidence that there are probably many other universes. And one of the latest that I'm going to do a segment on at Earthfiles in an upcoming broadcast, that black holes in the dynamic with universes that is still so mysterious, but baby universes, plural, may be generated by all of this seemingly cataclysmic energy and forces between black holes and galaxies, that even baby universes keep being proliferated. And what if the huge truth always has been and always will be that not even the divine field knows what precisely will be the ingredients of each of those new baby universes that are somehow self-procreating out of this gigantic forces. We're in one universe. Physicists say there are probably many universes. And that if we knew that we were in an advanced university universe, that this is where you really learn about the struggle between light and dark, and this is where you really truly have a gift, an option from the divine field. You have a soul. You get to pick and choose. Go after light. Go after love. Always go after life. That is the key to all of the universes. And this one might be one of the most rigorous universe training grounds there is. Hang on to that no matter how rough it gets in this decade. I love you guys. Feel a digital hug. And I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday and to more subscribers. We're close to getting through 160,000. I want to get to 175,000 on the spring, March date. So help me. I hope I'm helping you. Love.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.